The unit I'm going to show you is a social studies unit that has links to ADST and to language arts. What's really cool about Social Studies 5 is it really takes a deep dive into Canadian institutions, into immigration, into minorities, into positive and negative legacies within our country, and I've been able to dive into these with the kids, and I love it. So the big ideas are really powerful and thoughtful. The curricular competencies, a lot of them are historical thinking or geographic thinking, and those come from the Critical Thinking Consortium, CT squared, TC squared. I can never remember what it is. I will put a link to it in the bio. And the content just gives you some ideas. There's so much that you can teach under this topic, and I've had wonderful conversations with kids. So this is kind of where I'm at, and the unit I'm going to talk to you about is usually about the third unit in my year. I've done it 2 times, and this year I'm not teaching social studies. My job share partner is, but she's already told me she's stealing the unit and doing it. So this unit is about the lives of immigrants, refugees, and minorities and how they were treated historically. So when I was designing this unit originally, what did I do? Well, I went to the big ideas. What big ideas did I want to play around with? You can see the first time I planned this unit, quite a few language arts big ideas, 1 social studies, and it's a pretty big one. And I had to do a lot of research and thinking, and I did a deep dive into different topics to figure out my guiding questions. And they're big questions, and I had to unpack the language in these with kids. We exploded the sentences. There's an example of that in a blog post coming out in a few weeks. So my big questions were, how has the historical and modern treatment of minorities shaped and continued to shape our identity as a country? This is not an easy question. Is Canada a good country for minorities or refugees to live in? Also not an easy question. How have minorities shaped/changed our -- how would Canada be a different place without minorities? These are really great driving questions. I thought about larger assessment. So I really had 2 strands going here, and I was constantly co-planning a language arts strand and a social studies strand. So I had lit circles going, but they weren't traditional lit circles. They're book bins with picture books, nonfiction books, novels on different topics, and they're growing and evolving, and I've worked quite closely with my librarian, who is wonderful and comes in and does things with me. So that was kind of the ongoing assessment, and then we did in their groups, they did activities every week about whatever topic they were on, including like the 4th week in a historical story map where they worked together. If they were, say, working on the Black History Month, Black History group, they created a map of certain things for Black history, and so they created a historical map within the group, which is cool. My favorite, the Museum of Forgotten History, which is an interactive museum where the kids built museum artifacts that showed both discrimination experienced by a group and a benefit that group brought to Canada. Why is Canada better? Because these groups are here. And then this is a piece I still haven't done, but I want to. It's a writing historical fiction. I personally am working on historical fiction books, but that hasn't been done. So these were kind of the 4 I was thinking about. And I had all of these in my head before I started looking at the curricular competencies in social studies and language arts. So here I have my topic, my big ideas, my big questions, my curricular competencies, my assessment, and then I started to think about, well, how will the lessons flow? And I had my multiculturalism introduction activities, and then I had 2 different strands going. And is it a perfect outline, and did I add to it every week? Absolutely. But I had my language arts lessons, and I had my social studies lessons. And basically every week in social studies I would introduce a different topic, and this year I actually told a different part of the Komagata Maru story every single week, and then the kids would research and learn about the group they were in based on the topic of the Komagata Maru. In language arts we did so many amazing loose parts provocations, but we had these 2 strands going, and we kept going and we kept going, and then we had our Museum of Forgotten History. So this was my plan, and this was the list I sent to my librarian before school started, and I said, hey, do we have all of these? And my amazing librarian made sure we had all of these and actually brought in way more, and it was fantastic. And I continued to outline, what's going to be on that historical map. I'm always planning with the end in mind. Again, I haven't done this with historical fiction writing yet, but it's here. I'm thinking about it. I've got a plan for it. I've got a marking assessment for it. It just hasn't been done. But then here's the booklet for the Museum of Forgotten History that each student had, where they have their challenge. It took 3 weeks. Like, projects for me are short and intense. They received a social studies mark, an oral language mark. We have all the topics. We have the components. So they have everything. And then we have the graphic organizers. So I've got this all designed. I'm one of those weird teachers who reinvents the wheel. I know that. I'm strange. But this is the kind of in-depth unit planning that I do. A unit reflection, a museum checklist, the assessment. We had planning their museum interactions, so they knew how to speak. And then this was sort of a second to last activity, penultimate obviously, where they were kind of defending and comparing different groups. I'm all about getting kids to think critically, getting things to make comparisons, getting kids to form arguments. It's super important to me. And giving the kids the supports they need to find success. And it's lots of fun. I promise you, it is so much fun. But what does it start with? How do you get this epic 40-page unit done and it's great? It starts with big ideas, guiding questions. You can't get those guiding questions till you do some research, which leads to you exploring larger assessment pieces, curricular competencies, and trying to be cross-curricular. You can do this, I promise. I have a little cheat sheet that I will put online that you can either print off or I think convert to a Word document, just to kind of get that. What is your topic? What are your big ideas? What are your big questions? What's some research you've done? What are the curricular competencies? What kind of assessment pieces are you looking at? Who are some teachers and educators that can support you? And even just starting to think about a few great activities that could become lessons. You can do this. Unit planning is not hard. There's just hoops to jump through, and there's so many amazing things you can do to help kids.